I'm just crazy about fishing, match fishing in particular. I love trying to find out exactly what the fish want, making tiny changes to my approach and trying to find an edge and ultimately winning competitions, because that's what it's all about. I've managed to win some of the sport's biggest competitions. Big competitions like that, you might rely on an element of luck with your draw, but you have to get your tactics absolutely spot on and be 100% confident in what you're doing. Practice and preparation are vital in match fishing, and if you're not well versed on the venue that you're fishing, you're instantly at a disadvantage. Throughout a year, I'll book onto matches on a number of different venues, and in this series, the Matrix cameras are going to follow me around the country as I visit those waters. He's a barbel, all right. Oh, he's done me. During a session, I'll have to do my utmost to work out how to catch the biggest weight of fish possible to help me pick up some cash in any upcoming matches. I'm Les Thompson, and this is the practice. Welcome to another episode of The Practice. Today you join us and we've come to the beautiful Patshull Park, a venue that's not too far from me, one that I really enjoy fishing, I do quite well at, and it's this time of year when we get to come and fish in these beautiful surroundings, as the venue is shut pretty much for match anglers until late July, and then it opens up when the trout fishing starts to die off. The reason I've come, it's a week before the bank holiday weekend. Next weekend I'm actually running the Feeder Masters event on this venue. I've done a lot of work with a friend of mine, Gary Johnson. We've been cleaning out some pegs, the fishery staff have helped, and basically I've come down to have a bit of a chuck. On the day after Feeder Masters I've got a little 2-dayer, which they always do on the bank holiday weekend. It's going to be a weight overall thing, so today I'm going to come down and have a bit of a fish with the feeder and on the pole. The trolley's loaded, so let's get down and find a peg. So, did I say it's got 72 acres? Well, this is the peg we've chosen, peg 9. Top up on the top, yeah, stop. Ready? Yeah. Well, this is the peg that I've chose. It's peg 9 in the top shallows. There's 3 main sections to this lake and what will be used on Feeder Masters and on that festival. You've got the shallows, which is from 1 down to 25. You've got the boats that are from 51 up to 72, which are just a row of floating punts on the far side. A bit daunting for some people to think they'll be fishing out of a boat, but trust me, they're really quite easy to fish from, and they're actually bigger than a normal landing stage, what you'd find on a commercial or another venue where someone's made a peg. And then you've got the hotel bank, which is probably the easiest section to fish because there's no walk. You can drop your tackle off, or you get off, then park your car on your thingies. Depths down there are significantly deeper to this area, and at this time of year, because the fish migrate down the lake towards winter, you find that the fish seem to be sat up at this area of the lake and in the boats to the middle shallows, and then start to drop down to the 20s, to the 30s, then to the 50s as we creep into autumn and edge into winter. On the peg today, like I say, I'm going to fish pole, probably at 13 to 14 when I've had a good plumb around. Have a little range with a bomb, see where I can find myself a nice 9-10 foot. A short line, and if I feel like throwing the line after, I've got a nice golf tee to change my hobby. What more could you ask from a peg? just getting ready to start fishing and choosing your swims and seeing just what's about is a very important thing on lakes, natural lakes like Patshull. I intend to put a line here where I'm just going to throw some casters by hand, maybe a little ball of slop, because I'm a little bit closer to myself, but I've got at least 4 foot there. But you want to be exploring all around your peg because they're not as well maintained as commercial fisheries. Branches and things can fall. If you just pick a line and don't have a look what's actually around in your peg, you're going to be dropping yourself in snags. I'm looking, this is just a gradual slope around. The other line that I want to put in is at 13 metres. So it starts to go again there, look. So it just goes off a little ledge and again, it's gradually going away from me. And I want to fish at 13 metres where I've got around about 6 or 7 foot, which is a nice depth on the pole. But it always pays just to go past, because on naturals, when the roach and the skimmers and things, they back away from your feed, you can catch just as many fish just sat off your feed. You can see that there as we go past. He's at least another 6 inches deeper, so I shall mark both those depths onto my kit. So at some point when I'm looking for fish, if I feel like they've backed away, I'll just quickly slide it up and hopefully keep picking up some more fish. I ain't going to be too aggressive with what I put in today, to be honest, because it was quite cold last night. Even though it's warm, it's quite flat, it's bright. I ain't going to go all gung-go and put loads of bait in. But it seems relatively clear. It's a little bit soft, a bit silty. But back here, 13 metres. That's just nice, just there. Just there. I should do the same with the bomb, because again that's important. I'm looking for 9 to 10 foot with the bomb. I'll have a range around, because again I don't want to be throwing into snags. The worst thing you can do, you see lots of anglers, they just set up, they wait, they don't have a look, they put a feeder on, they wait for that man to chuck out, he chucks out and think, oh great, I'll chuck further. I'll chuck shorter, in it goes, next thing you know, rod's up. So they've started the match already, and they're all bunged and blocked and snagged up, and that's no good. We don't want to be doing that. So now I've chosen me 2 pole lines, what I want. I'll have a range with the bomb, try and find that 9-10 foot, and make sure it's nice and clear. So I've just chucked it out past. I've gone like 45-50 turns there. It's only a 4,000 size reel. I'm just dragging the bomb across, just bouncing across the bottom, just feeling for any snags or anything that might be there. I've got a count of 10 on that depth. As it's just feeling bouncing up the ledges as we get closer to the pole line. So the peg is relatively clear. I've had a throw to the left, a throw to the right. I want to be chucking 35-40 turns. Nine there. So that's where I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick between 30 and 40 turns. I'm going to count to 9. It seems reasonably clear. I'll throw back out and clip up, and that's where we're going to put the feeder line. Another thing that you need to check before you start your actual session is, have you got the right tip in your rod? Obviously on big spaces of water and expanses like this, 72 acres, you can get a lot of tow, under tow, surface tow. Even though today is still relatively flat calm, you know, there's been a little bit of a breeze, it doesn't take long for the tow to pick up. Obviously that tip's holding quite well, but if I was to have thrown out and it started to just crawl around, all the way around on its own to that, your tip's wrong, and you need to be changing it and beefing it up, because all you'll get all day is next to it just, you know, you ain't going to see no indications, your rod's going to be bent all the way around, and it's at its limit. There's nothing there. So to get the right setting so you can see your bites and avoid the big tow. The big tow, that sounds bad, avoiding the big tow. But avoid the big tow, get the right tip in the rod. That one's actually an ounce. But there'll be lots of situations, especially on shallow water like Southfield, when it's got a blow on there, you're fishing much bigger size tips. And it's the same with the pole, to be fair. Before I start with that, I'll go out. Before I fed it earlier, I went out, as you saw, and I checked. I put the rig on that I wanted to use in that situation. I checked if it was towing, because there'd be nothing worse than to feed all your bait in an area. You ain't checked if it's towing, it's ripped through. If you're loose feeding or you've put them balls in, even though they'll go down quite quickly, anything else that happens after, your bait could be down here, your rig ain't sitting right amongst your bait, it's lifting and it's pulling through. So always check what's happening with the tow in regards to the right tip and the right float. Sorted. We've got all the gear ready, and now it's time to just a bit more prep with the bait. Most of the bait's on the table. We've got worms, red worms, maggots, pinkies, casters, corn. No pellets. Some anglers like to fish pellets on this venue. I find that they normally kick in later in the year, but I spend enough time fishing pellets up and down the country on commercials and that, chasing qualifiers. So it's a time of year when I enjoy fishing natural baits when I've come back from Ireland. So onto the mix itself. In the past, I've always used cereal based and not really bothered too much with fish meal. I've tried to stay on the natural side of things, but as time's gone on and more people are introducing pellets, and roach are being caught for fun on pellets these days, on canals and on natural waters. So I now fish with a fish meal base mixed. I use a black sweet fish meal, which I get by the sack, and then a Vandenheim super green carp. Mix it 50-50, then add a little bit of crumb with it, coarse crumb, just so you can give that little bit extra for the roach that want to come in the peg, because roach absolutely love bread. I separate the mix because I like to keep it on the dry side to start with the feeder, and then I'm just going to get this wetted back up because it was mixed last night with warm water, so it stays inactive, so it's dead, a complete dead mix. I don't want it fizzing and popping about all over the place. So I've separated it, so I've got a drier sided mix for there, which I'll more than likely alter through the session, make it a little bit wetter, change the feeder, make it a bit sloppier to try and keep bites coming. That's what we need to do to change at times. But this now, just get this wetted up, make some balls up with it. Going to put myself half a pint of casters and some dead pinkies in. Here's a golfer. He's got loads. He's a golfer. He's got loads of balls already made. He has. Did you get him? Yeah. He's got a bag full of balls. I might ask him for the balls. So we'll go back to what I'm going to put in my balls. Mine ain't titless or ping or whatever it is. So back to my balls. So I'll be probably making 6 to 8. We've got another golfer coming. He's got even more balls. Hi, mate. Hi, mate. Morning. So we got lovely. That's two mornings for me. I need 8 more in 45 minutes. Morning, mate. Morning. That's 7. Back to my balls. I don't think anybody else is coming. Probably make between 6 and 8. I think I'm going to go with 6. Like I say, there's a little bit of a ripple coming now. It's dropping in that area where we've got 35-40 turns where we've clipped up. It's quite flat on the pole, so I ain't going to go gung-go and throw loads of balls in. I'm going to cup them in. Going to put half a pint of casters in, got my measure here, a few dead pinkies, make them balls up, just make this a little bit stiffer now, so I don't want it too heavy. I don't want it so it's going to stay on the bottom like I'm squeezing a boil on my bum. All I want to do, I just want to get them so they're going to get to the bottom and break down nice and gradual. I don't want something that's going to stay there forever. I want fish to come in and start working on them. So we'll just wet it back up and give it a blast with the old drill. So it took next to nothing really to get that pretty much how I wanted it. It's a dark mix. I prefer darker mixes, to be fair. I just find that would work well on this water, and to be honest, green all over the country really. Green is a colour that really does score, and that is quite dark and it's quite green, so it's something I'm confident with, and that's the main thing when you're using your mix. Confidence is key, and if you catch fish with it in different situations, you'll feel like you can catch fish anywhere. So away we go, we'll make some balls. then. Here's the last one. It's dead important, just nice and steady. All these have gone in nice and steady. I've seen lots of anglers go charging out and collapse the pole on the 4s and the 5s because there is a significant bit of amount of weight at the end of that cup. Nice and steady. Another reason why I've cupped these balls in is because when we did plumb up and I showed you that we fish past our feed, it did drop off 6 inches. Now if I was to throw balls in there, obviously by throwing them, they're spinning, they're hitting the water in that area, they could drop down that shelf, so they could fall into that 14 metres and everything then could sit at 16 metres. So by keeping them nice, they're already fizzing up, look where they're on the bottom, just underneath my pole cup. So they're all nice and accurate and tight in the same place. I've picked on the far bank that cluster of roots that looks like some of it used to grow out my mate's granny's chin. Just over there on this mole she used to have. You won't mind me saying that, I don't see him much anymore. There we go. Pole line's fed. We'll start on the feeder. They're small fish, aren't they? Since I've put more worm through, that is. Since I've put more worm through it, it's brought them smaller fish back, switched back to just putting casters through it. But I've altered the mix as well. It's been better since I started with a drier mix, getting that little column and cloud going through the water. And then when I've wet it more and gone further, so it's gone further down. But it's getting pagged now since I put a bit more worm in. We've had a nice run on skimmers, to be fair, and size ones, one about £1, a few roach and perch, but it seems the more worm I've put in, the more small fish have come. Double baits and pieces of worm up to about 1.5 inches long have been best up to yet. Tipping it off with a double baits with a red maggot, or worm head and a little maggot. It's definitely better with just casters and then no worm. After that initial 5 feeders with the 6-hole, I've altered about with the hook lengths as well. I've gone on the feeder and a little bit longer, up to about 4 foot. There's definitely fish there. We've got fizzing in the peg. Lots of activity on the tip, but them small fish seem to have just come back. But you can build a weight, and I think £20 would be, well, if you offered me £20 now on any one of the sections, I'd take it, to be fair. Come the day, and I'd definitely take £20 both days on the the combined weight match. Oh, I'd say he's one. There's one, Craig. There's one. The frequency of casting as well. I mean, I've been sat, if you sit longer than 4 or 5 minutes, it just sits, and then eventually you come back and it's been them little fish have been picking away at it. If they're going to take it, they're taking it in the first 2 minutes of it going through the water. Little skimmer again, but they're weight builders. If this was feeder masters, I'd have a line much further out, much further over, probably 60 turns, where I'd smack a load of worm and cast it through it as a throwaway line. But I think this sort of range that we're in, from pole range to where we're catching, is where you're going to keep putting fish in the net. And if you do that for 5 hours, you ain't going to be far away. I'm convinced of that. Well, that little skimmer, he's ejected it into the net. You can't do that with many landing nets, can you? The old Superlight free flow net is the exact term for it. Literally, if they spill, it goes in, a little bit of a wiggle, out she comes, the old barb duck.
You ain't got to cut it and buy a new net.
No, they don't end up looking like your socks, full of holes. Could have said your boxers.
I might have been wearing any.
You're that tight, you probably ain't. Oh dear. Definitely been better with a quicker casting every 3 minutes. Picking up the fish, like I say, if you sat there waiting, it ain't going. I'd sit longer if I was on a longer bream line with a bigger bait, but I just think the way they've been coming out so far this year, since it's been open from the back end of July, the lads who've gone out and caught them, they've caught them straight away on these sort of distances anyway. And the throwaway line, if you're sitting there much longer just waiting, you're missing out on fish. Yes, they can be 3, 4, up to 7 pound, but you're missing out on fish. And I'm still convinced that high teens, 20 pounds will be a good weight. There's indications on there again. Going forward, looking for that pole line later for the 2-dayer. The fish starting to ping and bubbles starting to come. I've been throwing casters over the top. Still loose feeding casters on that 6 metres and throwing a little loose ball. So it'll be interesting to see what's settled on there later.
You put worm on the pole line as well then, or not bothered?
No. I'm just going to top up with, when I top it up, I'll top it up with a little mushy ball. I mean, I've put a little bit through that feeder to start with, and like I say, bought perching, but on that pole line I've put casters and pinkies. You just tend to put, the more worm you put through it, you tend to get lots and lots of little perch in that area. There's another skimmer. And you get lots and lots and lots of little perch, and they can be a nightmare once they move in. I remember a match last year. I've really gone for it with worm, a little bit further up actually, and after an hour and a half, I'm having a perch every single chuck in on the tip, and I've gone over the pole line where I've put lots of worm and I've done exactly the same. It was just littered with them. But in the end, I've ended up having 26 pounder. I've had to go for them in the end, due to the fact that I'd stuck that much in. So I'll just introduce it as it comes. There's another little skimmer. You can see they're weight builders, isn't they, Craig? That's the thing. And it's really nice to see the stamp of that fish, Craig, what we've just had feeding again, because you know it's good for the future. There's lots of them. We've had, I don't know how many you reckon we've had, 20 or so up to yet?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Not more.
Yeah, and they build a weight, but with the venue going forward, they survive. They're only going to get bigger, same as the roach. It ain't going to be long before the weights are increasing. I mean, this year there's already been 2 50 plus weights and 30s, and so going forward as a venue, 2 years time, if they survive, this is going to be absolutely awesome. Not that it isn't now. It's really enjoyable. It's good fishing, lots of bites. Like I say, it just bodes well for the future. I suppose there's always golf if we don't catch it there.
Are you a good swinger then, is that what it is?
Not at all. I don't mind going clubbing, but I ain't swinging clubs. Stuff there. Don't mind walking my dog, but I ain't walking with a bag of iron. What do you think of the place anyway, mate?
I wish it was 2.5 hours closer.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Beautiful
gorgeous.
place.
Yeah.
Beautiful place.
First time I've seen it, and it's stunning.
Oh, mate, it's unbelievable. Even if that tip ain't going round like it is, having lots of bites and lots of activity, you're always busy. But just, look what we sat. We sat in the middle of a lake, not a soul in sight. You know, if you weren't having bites, you know, the scenery is awesome. It's akin to, like, for the younger people who don't do this sort of thing and stick on commercials, it's like probably being in Spearmint Rhino with only your taxi fare, and you know you ain't going to get any action, but the view's fantastic. You know what I mean?
I'd walk home.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? You would, wouldn't you? You would. You'd lend 20. Well, it's right, isn't it?
Do they do credit in them sort of places?
No, you got nowhere to swipe your card. They do contact Apple Pay. Well, maybe you know what I mean, don't you? You sat here. What can be any better? What could be any better? Well, there's another skimmer. This time that one's just been picked up, just twitching the bow. I've just picked up the feeder, dragged the hook bait into the area where the feed is. And that's the thing, you watch a lot of anglers when they're tip fishing, they're quite happy to fish with a pole and lift and drop and feed and big pot and be really proactive all day with what they're doing. But they'll just sit and just keep monotonously throwing without ringing the changes, changing hook lengths, changing the size of your feeder. You know, you can do the same sort of things, just applying everything just a different way. That's all it is. Ringing the changes. Feels like a better fish actually. All I did was just give it a little twitch. I've dragged it a foot back over the top of the amount of feed that we've been putting in, where they've all started grazing. And we've picked up a bit of fish. Lovely. Look at him. Oh, beautiful. Ooh. They're the ones you want, mate, aren't they? They're the ones, pal. You wouldn't mind one of them every throw, would you? Look at that. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Beautiful fish. Just before I cast this feeder back out, I'll just quickly run you through the feeder setup. I mean, for years I used to be adamant that the way to fish for this sort of thing was to fish like an old patnos to start, and this is the same sort of thing, just a different way of doing it. But I used to make a loop, used to cut it in half, use one for the hook length, one for the feeder, and then you tie it so that it hung just below the feeder so it didn't interact with each other, and it was all a sequence of knots or tied into loops. There's lots of different ways to do it. But having spoke in length to a good friend of mine, Dean Barlow, and everyone knows what he does with the England feeder team, just to basically make things much more simpler. I used to fish a bomb, I still do, all the time, where I can put it in between two stops. And then Dean told me that he did it this way, and that it just worked just as perfect with him using one of his feeder links. He's been kind enough over time to let me have some of his feeder links, but I've stopped being cheeky now and just popped a couple up together of my own. I've still used Dean's, but when you're family and you've got work commitments and things, it's hard to keep badgering your friends. You feel a bit guilty. So basically it's 6 pound mainline, 6 pound mono. I fish with mono in this depth of water because I like using braid when it's much deeper. This is going to sink. I can pick up baits. Basically I'll chuck it out and the mono is going to sink, whereas the braid would still be up on the surface. You know, it's going to get there. I don't need it. If I got more depth, the braid would go out there and I'm going to see bites. But for this distance what I'm chucking and for this depth of water, braid isn't really needed. The indication's just as good with monofilament. So I've got basically 2 float stops, then I've got 4 or 5 inches of twisted link. But the good thing about this, and this is why I used to fish it on the bomb, is you can slide it up and it'll give you different depths. So if that peg's, like I've said, between 9 and 10 foot, I'll go 9 and 10 foot on that and let it just fall through the water nice and slow on its own. So, and if that's the way it needs to be, I can then alter the length of my hook length to what I think is needed there, nice and soft and supple, and it'll fall even slower. So it'll let me feel through what's in my peg. The rod itself is one of the new Horizon S Slims. It's a 3.3, 10.10 in old money. It'll cast up to 40 grams. 1 ounce tip's been perfect because I ain't been towing. It's an 012 hook length and a 16 of one of our Super Pole match hooks. Cracking little hook that for skimmers and fishing worm and maggots, and like we've been doing today, double baits, absolutely perfect. I've stayed with a 16. If the fish had got bigger and more aggressive, I'd have stepped it up 14, even a 12. Ain't a problem going any bigger with that hook. But that's something I'm grateful to Dean for putting me on to. It just makes it dead simple, takes a sequence of knots out of it, very little tangles at all. You know, the only time you can, if you wind it back like a lunatic, and you'll absolutely spin any hook length up with double baits then. But dead simple, which is the best way to keep most of your fishing. Our friend the carp angler here just turned up for his weekend session. Dropping about 25 kg of pellets over there. Interesting to see that. I always wondered. There's bivvies on the pegs at this venue. There's a couple on 25. And there's one on 21, 22. There's one on 14. It's interesting to see just how far out there they're going and dumping the bait in the boat. In case you ever draw that peg. You know where they've been throwing a lot of kit. And fish will settle and stay there.
It couldn't be perched up there then on your oil rig while I'm splashing about in the water down here.
I'm always comfy, mate. A lot of people ask that like when they see me. So, Jesus Christ, how long does it take to set that up? But once you've been doing it, you know, as long as you have, you get used to setting it up. It takes very little time. You're only turning threads and putting legs in at the end of the day. What could be any better? And I've got a big side tray with everything on I need, everything to hand. I've got all my kits on a roost. My rollers are set at an eyesight where when I'm shipping fish the pole's going back in one, so there's more speed there. I ain't wasting time breaking down. Net's right in front of me, so if anything drops, it's in there. Another tray here for my other bits and pieces. Yeah, it looks like there's a lot here, but you watch me put it together. It didn't take that long, did it? And I'm comfortable. I'm out in the middle of the lake and I'm comfortable. You know, I'm as comfortable as if I'd be on any peg, on any commercial or any venue that was on the bank. And that's, you know, it's all level. My back ain't getting twisted up. I won't have to phone in sick on Monday. Everything's good.
Just don't drop your phone.
Where's that? There's one. Yeah, a little skin bob. That's a nice way to finish it, isn't it, Craig?
Yep.
Just before we have a look on the pole.
On that pole.
Yeah. Have a look on the pole. Little skimmer. Where is he? Oh, we won't swing him. We won't swing him. In he goes. Now we'll have a look on that pole now, I think, mate. We've gone through the changes, kept bites coming. We've gone down onto the feeder, locked it off, let the feeder run a bit so one could hang itself. Through the ground bait, we started with a dry mix, then wet it a little bit more. It was definitely better the damper it got, wasn't it?
Wetter the better.
The wetter the better. Taking the worm out of the situation and the feed in the feeder and just coming down to bits of casters and then just ground bait, that was definitely better. And it slowly kept them ticking over. Double baits have been best, worm and maggots, hasn't it? So the longer baits, you just sat fishing bigger pieces of worm, we just sat for far too long. You're wasting time, and it was evident that if you cast in, you get to 3 minutes as you were timing it. If you hadn't had your bite by then, you're only going to sit longer and you're going to come back with something tiny, won't we? So it was all about quick casting, and you pick one up, they'd follow it down, and another skimmer would come. So it's been enjoyable. So we'll see what's settled on that pole. So now it's time to have a look on the pole line. I mean, that's been a real nice productive spell at 40 turns on that feeder line. We've caught some nice fish. We've had quite a few skimmers. the worm was definitely something that they were backing away from. It was bringing far too many small fish in the peg. We've put, like I say, 6 balls in there. I've constantly kept throwing a little nugget about yay big, just underarm, just there, throwing a few casters. That's another line, that's another line we can try. But I'm going to go out now. I'm going to start on the 0.5, and that's a pattern of float. What I use for this is a Carper Gloucester float. Dead steady float, wire stem. This one's the 1/2 gram. I put 1 rig up with shot, so it'll let me fish through the peg. At the moment it's blocked on a bulk and 3 droppers. The main line is 014 down to 010. There's one just top there, look where I've thrown that ball. So we'll have a look on that pole, and like I say, and see what's about. Quite looking forward to it actually, because it's been, them balls have been in there, what, a good couple of 3 hours. So nice and gentle, strip out. I've been pinging casters as well while I've been fishing that feeder, just priming the line. But as can be the case, when you start on this rig, you can easily find that quite quickly that rig can be too light due to the amount of small fish that are in the peg. And a nice start, Craig. Oh, he'll do, won't he? Get him.
Chunky roach, that one.
Yeah, little chunky mother, innit? He's been troughing, hasn't he? Aye? He's been troughing. Won't make money of them. Spot on. Always like it when they make that bloop. You know that they're a right stamp. So nice and steady. Flick the rig out and then just lay it in. Don't put it in like a bag of spanners. Something's like that straight away, look. Yeah. Shows there's a lot of small fish in the peg tray. And he's come off as well. I think that might need the heavier rig straight away. I've set up for my rigs the 0.5, 0.75 in a gram. Reason being a gulping size, obviously 1 for tow, but 2, if I am getting pestered with small fish, I want to get through them straight away. It won't be too strange just to go up past to 1.5 grams if you needed to really bang it through, getting pestered by too many small fish. But the way that went then, the float just held up and held up and held up. Then there's a little fish on, he's dropped off on the way back, so we'll just see how it goes, and if that's the case we'll step the float up. The rig that I'm using for, there's another one. The rig that I'm using for the 6 metre line, where I've been throwing casters and a little ball with some casters in, is an old favourite float of mine. Really hard to get hold of these days. Little chunky one, little skimmer, little skim bob. And that's the old Drennan roach. They're like rocking horse, you know, whatever they used to. Am I allowed to say it?
You can beep it.
Beep it.
You say it as
rocking horse beep. Rocking horse.
No, you say it. So you go rocking horse and I'll beep at the same time.
Rocking horse,
Beep.
that'll do.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's small fish. That definitely needs heavier float. It's the old Drennan roach in a wire pattern, 4x12s, and that's just a strung out pattern as well. It's much shallower there. So what I've got out there, probably 1.5 feet or so shallower, 2 foot shallower. But that rig will also double up as a rig I can fish through the water on this line if I'm searching for fish and trying to keep bites coming. But at the moment, I'd be happy with them if there was nothing else, but I want to see if there's something else down there like skimmers. So we're going to step it up. We'll take it up to 0.75, see if that's any better, and if it means it, we'll go up to 1 gram. lightning, sir. There's one. Now that is evident that you put that 0.5 on, we're getting pestered by small fish. Put the 0.75 on, it was a little bit better, picked up a little bit better stamp, but I still felt that it needed to get down quicker and get amongst the fish. We've gone on the gram, picked up some better skimmers already, and I think we've got another one. Oh yes, look at that, beautiful. Come on darling, in you go. So even in that depth of water, the gram, where you'd think the 0.75 or the 0.5 was right, the gram has been much better. Little worm's heads again, Craig. Little worm's heads. Had a few on maggots, but amazing how they've wanted to eat that, but the more I've put in the peg, the worse it's got. When I've put the chop in. The casters is what they've been after. And obviously what does a worm's head look like? That's what we want. See, back in. Back in, and we've got a little skin bob. Coarse swing then. Grandad always told me never swing a skimmer. There we go. It's better. That'll be a trout. Did you see that? That'll be a trout. That's a trout just topped in my peg. There's one hanging on that now. I thought so. The reason why I've not constantly kept throwing a ball today. He's tiny, look. Got lucky on the way down, you. Is because you can get moithered by trout. They soon hear that noise, they come looking. And one has just popped up right next to the float. And so I wouldn't imagine it'd be too long before we have a spotted one. Oh, well that's come straight up. I've changed to the gram rig just to get through so many small fish there, just to get through, and that feels like a better fish. Oh Jesus. One for you here, Craig. You fancy trout for tea?
Be good with some chip.
I thought, oh, get him here. Old Spotty. Bless him. Get that. Oh, shame you don't count. Get that. Oh. Oh, I don't know. Got nothing else in there.
They not count?
They don't count, mate. Yep. Away he goes. You believe that? He come in like a paper bag. You thought that was a bream or a skimmer, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, but
I wanted to take that home for my truck for a tea.
Jeez, mate, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Oh, I'm gutted. I thought that was a lovely bream or something. Just go dunk, dunk, dunk. Last time I held something with that many spots on it, I had to go to the doctors.
Got it sorted now.
Yeah, it's all sorted. It's all sorted now. I've got chicken pox. Look at him. Oh, you ain't got spots. Hang on. Now you got spots. Hey. Whoa. Don't be silly. I thought for a minute then he was, you know. When he kicked just that little bit of tail, just that little bit, I thought, oh no, it's another one. Well, after topping up a couple of times with the worms and the casters in that little mushy ball, it was evident that it changed the peg completely. You know, we initially brought some fish in, but it got stronger with small fish. It was filling the peg up with fish that were like this and perch. The skimmers totally backed away. So we switched it back to casters, and that seemed to bring those skimmers back in, and just had a better one after a trout. So basically we're just topping up now. Similar size ball as last time, like a Satsuma size, but just casters in with a ground bait, no worms whatsoever. And to be fair, when we were fishing the feeder, after the initial lot of worms that we put in at the start in the bigger feeder pools to kick the peg off, it was the same with that. The more worm we put through it, the smaller the fish and the longer we waited for bites. Worm's been great on the hook, don't get me wrong, but casters and ground bait on its own through the feeder was best. And it's looking like this is pretty much the same on the pole line. So it could be a thing for the weekend. Although we've got to bring the worms, it might be they only want to taste and not too much. Well, this pole line has been absolutely solid. It's just ticking over lovely. I've dropped on the 6 metre line when I've topped it up with a mushy bore. It's definitely been better when I've switched it to casters, exactly the same as that feeder line. When I've cut the worm out, skimmers have returned. I've had some better skimmers on this line, some small skimmers, lots and lots of roach. I could literally, if I just fished through the water, I could catch a tiny fish every single pull in if I wanted. Great sport. Same on that short line. I've only had one skimmer there when I've rested it, but there's a roach or a perch. Another one just chopped top. Look where I've been throwing that little nugget and throwing a few casters just to keep ticking over. So I've given myself lots of options to when I rest the line, I can come here. Because this would be what I'll be doing on the Sunday and the Monday. But on a Saturday, obviously, it's just going to be a feeder only. So it's definitely, if I was to draw this area, something over the pole line, 30 yards, and a throwaway at distance, which I'll put a lot of kit in early doors and just leave it, to be honest. Because I think there's more than enough fish to be had from 40, 35 back this way to get you through. And there's more than enough fish on the pole line here for Sunday and Monday and on the feeder line to get you a 20-pound weight, which I think is what you're going to need. More than happy with the session, Mr. Butterfield. What do you think, sir?
You're confident?
Yeah, I'm confident if we get a draw. Always confident. We just need a draw, don't we? Just need a draw.
You have a look what you've caught.
I think we will, mate. Yeah, I think I've done enough. There's only so many you can catch, isn't there, before you think, well, I can still keep having one a chuck. I mean, literally, it's a bite a chuck. Be that big to skimmers and salmon and trout. Our little spotted friends. But it's been a lovely day, hasn't it? Lovely surroundings, lovely weather. It has been, to be fair, a bit flat and a bit bright for this style of fishing, but getting pestered by small fish again there, Craig. Yeah, I think it's time we have a look what we've had. Get the gear away. I need to sort some stuff out for the weekend, and I quite fancy a pint as well. I'd love to get you one, but you got a 3.5 hour drive.
Yeah, cheers for that.
Yeah, sorry mate. It just saves me at the bar. Well, that has been a truly awesome day at Patshull Park. I'm really looking forward to the bank holiday weekend. Hopefully it can get amongst a few fish like this. I'll see you next time on another practice. I'm knackered and I'm going to put these back. Well, that was most enjoyable. Learnt lots for next weekend. On that feeder line, after switching through different hook lengths and letting it fall slow, changing hooks, 16s was definitely better. Double baits, little tiny piece of worm followed by a maggot, just tipping it off after going through the card with that. Definitely cutting out the worm after we chopped quite a bit up and started putting it through. It definitely introduced too many small fish into the peg. Switched it back to just crumb and the casters. So that definitely made a difference there, keeping back on the worm. Even though it was great on the hook, it weren't so great keep running it through the feeder. But that's one of the things you need to sort out during your session, during the day, because you can't discount putting worm in when you're fishing for bream and skimmers anywhere. It was interesting, it was the same on the pole. We put a bit of worm in, little fish just attacked from afar, and casters was lots better. Even, you know, the fish noticeably got bigger, even brought in a trout. There's lots we've learnt with the size of the rigs. Due to the small fish in the peg, the gram rig was just far more superior on the day. Flicked through the feeders, I swapped to a dome and things throughout the day, but the cage was right. That dry mix initially, putting that little bit of cloud in the water, it was much better when we wet the mix down and made it a little bit more damp and just carried the casters so more went to the bottom. I'm well impressed. I just think it was a lovely bag of fish, and I look forward to getting amongst them and having a draw somewhere in this sort of area on all 3 days, hopefully. So we'll see. Most enjoyable. So that brings an end to the Bank Holiday weekend. I'll give you a quick update of what went on. Feeder Masters on Saturday. I drew exactly where I didn't want to be. I drew in the 50s on the boats, about 58. Also, I drew, Gareth Lambert drew it for me, so thanks for that, Gareth. 2 lines, one dead positive for bream, and the other one, like I did when I was practicing, picking up small skimmers. Only problem is a lot deeper there, and it just, you weren't never going anywhere. After about 3 hours, I heard that Shane Hodgkinson down on Plant's Neck, where he managed to find some shallower water, he got 4 bream and some skimmers that would probably be about 12 to 15 pound. So at that point I decided to push it, and I've put even more worm and gone for it on that longer line and over the short line, and it just ain't happened. I've ended up weighing 6 pound. There's been a pound to my right, 5 pound to my left, Gaz, my mate, and he's continually carried on going down that hole, and it's never got stronger. So it wasn't a B. Well done to all the qualifiers, Shane Hodgkinson, Ian Davis, who won the match, and Darren Hanley, if I remember right, from Saturday. Then it was on to the 2-dayer, and I managed to draw the boats again. Not in the mid-60s, boat 60. Nice day's fishing though. I've ended up catching 16-11, exactly pretty much how the practice session went. Apart from it was next to no pole fish, all tip fish pretty much. A few late fish on pole, but it's pretty much tip fishing. 16-11, which put me in 5th place for the double up on the weight going into the 2nd day. Won a section, so I got some coin back. And then I've managed to draw the boats again today. I've been on boat 70. So once again, I've missed where I wanted to be in the mid-60s. Yesterday, Peg 63 actually won the match with £28. Barry, all well done, Barry. He's gone on to win it overall. Rory O'Neill's come 2nd. I've had 15-8 today of 40 odd little small skimmers of the stamp we caught on the practice of those smaller sizes. 3 or 4 roach, no pole fish for 15-8. £16, I think 4 or 5 has been 2nd in the match, so I've just missed out. I've had 2 really enjoyable days fishing. One day that was enjoyable but disappointing because I enjoyed where I wanted to be, but that is feeder, not just feeder fishing, but qualifiers. You need the peg, you need to attack them, be positive. So no, all in all, it's been 3 lovely days fishing pretty much. I can't complain. Win or lose, have a booze, so I'm off to the pub.